Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name's Tony Ingraham, your host, and this week it's July 19th, 2017. If you want to see all of our episodes and see our full schedule of cablecasts on Channel 13, Public Access TV, go to my video blog, walkinthepark.tv, and you can see all of the Ithaca Public Access Television series schedules at our website, pegasus.webstarts.com. So this is a weekly public access television show series in Ithaca, New York. We're going to get right into it here. There's been some funky weather. Everybody likes dramatic weather, extreme. Well, I don't know if you like extreme weather, but big storms and rain and snow and all that. They get a lot of headlines, a lot of attention, and people make a lot of videos and so forth. But we had a lot of rain last week, and particularly we had a flash flood experience Friday evening, so we'll get into that here. First, let's take a look at the Finger Lakes, and this shows most of them, all the ones at least on the eastern Finger Lakes that are in the Oswego River watershed, the Seneca Oswego River watershed. So this shows the different watersheds of the Finger Lakes, and we're right there in the middle, the two big ones, two long ones on the right. That's Cayuga Lake, and of course in Ithaca, we're down at the bottom of that. So let's just isolate the Cayuga Lake watershed. It's something like 785 square miles of land surrounding the lake itself, and it's about 12 times as big as the actual lake. And anyway, we're going to zoom in on particular sub-watersheds as we go through this show, and look what happened during some of the heavy rains we've had recently. So let's see. Well, first let's go over to Buttermilk Falls State Park, walking down the gorge trail, and there's a rain shelter that you might have noticed more these days because it's been raining, and it's a beautiful little spot in the upper end of the gorge, and you go up there and get out of the rain. I've done it many times. There's another one in the park up around what's called Lake Treman as well. So you might have to take advantage of that. But anyway, we're going to go down the stairs, down the steep stairs, and look at some of the waterfalls. This is one I happened to be taking pictures of the other day. And this is called Triple Cascade. And this was, I think this was last Thursday, which would have been like July 13th. And, well, let's see. This is what it looked like. Okay, this is what it looked like in the morning, of July 13th. Then we had some heavy rain that afternoon, and so I got out of the gorge and came back later, and this is what it looked like later. This is the kind of amount of water that it had later. So we're going to take a look at, let me get up to here to see where I'm going here. We're going to take a look at a little video of the flow of this waterfall. See if we can get to it here. All right. Actually, I'm going to wait for that a minute, I think. All right. So anyway, so that's what it looks like in the morning. That's what it looked like in the afternoon, but not any great big thing. Let's go back a year. This is what it looked like a year ago. This was, I don't know, August or September, something like that. And then this is looking at it from just downstream. So we're looking at the same waterfall without any water on it. And this is when the flow is more normal. Here we go back in the 19th century, and this is an old stereograph picture showing the flow of the waterfall, probably after some heavy rain or so forth. Okay, now we're going to take a look at our little video here, I believe. Yeah, Triple Cascade this is known as. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so that's what came up after one rainstorm last Thursday. Let's walk up out of the gorge and back up those steps again, up into a gentler area of the gorge and farther up and eventually get out. Now we're going to go to, we're going to go to Ithaca Falls and other spots. We're going to look at some video here that was shot from a drone by Joe Scallion III in Ithaca, who has a business, a photography business called Photography 4D. Let me see if I can get up any particular notes about that. I guess that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to start his video. He gave me permission to use this. This has been widely seen on the internet. But here's the, first of all, taking a look at a Google Earth view of Ithaca Falls right in the middle. That's Fall Creek coming down from the Cornell campus to downtown. And let's go take a look at the video. Here's a zoom in on the falls, but let's make them come to life. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now that was Saturday morning, I think, between Saturday the 15th, between 8 and 9 a.m. he told me, and that was after the evening before, the Friday the 14th, and late afternoon there was the flash flood that came through. So it actually had probably been much higher than that. But Fall Creek, this is looking at the sub-watershed of Fall Creek, this green area here, is actually the largest sub-watershed of Cayuga Lake, some 140 square miles. So it gathers a lot of water, and it tends to hold its water much longer than some of the other smaller watersheds. Now we're looking at 6 Mile Creek, which is just south of that, the gray one here, the gray-green. I'm not sure how that looks on your screen, actually, but still a large watershed, but not as big as Fall Creek. And so that was pretty muddy. And I was in the 6 Mile Creek watershed on Saturday afternoon. It was still, water was still high and muddy, but it wasn't running that rough. Now we're going to look just to the left of that is the Buttermilk Falls. It's actually within the Cayuga Inlet's watershed. But the Buttermilk Creek watershed, that's pretty small compared to 6 Mile Creek. And you probably noticed in the video that there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of water coming. I mean, it wasn't flooding water coming down Buttermilk Falls, several waterfalls there, the first and second reach of the falls, and then Pulpit Falls up above. So there wasn't a whole lot of water in that. It wasn't flooding, and that's often the case where you get some of these creeks flood pretty intensely, whereas other ones that have smaller watersheds don't really get that much don't experience that much flooding. Although Buttermilk has been ripped out by floods at times, because it also depends upon just what's happening locally. For you might get a couple of inches at Buttermilk Falls falling, and then over on Treman up on Connecticut Hill up there, maybe you get 4 or 5 inches. So, by the way, this is Walk in the Park. WalkInThePark.tv is our website to go see all of our shows, including this one, and also get the schedule of cablecasts on Channel 13, Ithaca, New York, public access television. Okay, so now we're going to look at Taughannock Creek, and I do have some video of that. So you can see its watershed is on the lower left there, and that all enters the lake. So that's bigger than Buttermilk's, and maybe even, I don't know if it's bigger than 6 Mile Creek, but in any case, let's go to Taughannock Falls. And I think this is where we're going to show a little video again here. Let me just check my notes. I've got a lot of videos. Yeah, okay. So look at this video. This was Saturday afternoon. The falls had been much higher, as I'll show you in a moment. Okay, let's bring that up. Let me look in here at Taughannock Falls. Of course, that was from the overlook. You can hear all the people there, and they were pretty happy about the level of water, as you can imagine, because people come there to see a lot of water in the falls, and we all know that sometimes the falls don't have a lot of water on them. And that watershed is not all that big, so it rises and falls pretty quickly. The water that collects there will come roaring down. You can get quite a roaring flood, but not won't sustain itself, say, as long as Fall Creek. But here is a picture done by a local photographer and artist. His name is Fernando Llosa, and he took this, I'm not sure, it might have been Thursday, or I don't know, maybe Thursday or so. So it wasn't the same flash flood, but there certainly was a lot of water coming over Taughannock Falls when he took this picture. This picture has been shared all over Facebook, all over the internet, more than 1,000 times. And he's got a lot of interesting stuff on his website. Here's a closer in of the high water, probably near the brink of the falls. You can by the way, you can get large prints of the images of his photography and artwork are sold at Home Green Home on the Commons. So if you want to check that out, you can go to his check out his stuff. Go to his website at www.unboundart.com. Unboundart.com. Okay, let's take a look at what it looks like a year ago. This is from the same spot that this picture was taken. This was taken a year ago. Practically no water coming over. You actually needed binoculars to actually see the water falling there. It was amazing. Here's another picture by Fernando Llosa. Not at that time. I don't know what time it was, but isn't that a neat perspective of that water just coming straight down on the wet cliff? And yet another picture. He has a lot of pictures like this, and much more abstract looking, a lot of them. Well, he has a couple of sections on Taughannock Creek, and very interesting compositions that he has. So I encourage you to go check out his work at unboundart.com. Okay, Fernando Llosa. Let's take a look at, now we're going to go to Enfield Creek, which is the creek that runs through. You can see right in the middle of the picture there, it says Enfield Creek. That's within the Cayuga Inlet watershed. And that Enfield Creek is the creek that runs through Treman, Robert H. Treman State Park, and the gorge there. So you can kind of make out its sub-watershed within the watershed of Cayuga Inlet, the sub-watershed of Cayuga Inlet. And then to the right, all the way on the right, just to the left of the 6 Mile Creek watershed area, that is Buttermilk Creek. I think there's a much bigger watershed overall for Enfield Creek than for Buttermilk Creek. So let's go to Lucifer Falls, the big waterfall, 115 feet high there in the Upper Gorge Trail. and just get myself oriented here in my notes. Okay, so we're going to take a look at Lucifer Fall and Flood. Now this was posted, I believe. Okay, believe on the Robert H. Treman State Park Facebook page. Let's take a look. Very short video. Coming right up here. So that was the flash flood Friday evening at Lucifer Falls, and they took some more picture here. Let's go up to the entrance gorge, the upper gorge, where you first go in from the upper park into the gorge. This is looking back from the stone bridge that looks into the upper park. Obviously not this time of year, but they took another shot that same time from looking back from this bridge. Pretty amazing stuff here. Have that come up just a moment. Obviously both cell phone videos, but those were very popular repostings on Facebook. So they gave me permission to do that. Now this this is a swimming area at Treman, Lower Treman. This would have been on July 8th. So the swimming is open, everything's great and groovy. And I'm gonna now show you a picture from May 6th. This was a high water time in May 6th. We were actually doing some volunteer work at the park there. We had a whole bunch of volunteers at I Love My Park Day, and we had heavy rains and got a little flood right there in the swimming area. Well, I'm showing you this. This isn't the flood we had on Friday, although it's probably similar. But let's take a look. Let's see, what do we get out of that? I'm going to show you some footage from that. Okay, that'll take a moment to queue up. So let me just take a look here. What else I've got going on here? Oh, yes. So the swimming area experiences, the whole gorge experiences flash floods like these, and they have to clear them out. In the spring, they have to excavate out all the material that was washed down. They take out the dam that creates the swimming hole, and they in the fall, and then all kinds of gravel and logs and stones and boulders and so forth are washed in all winter long, and in the spring, like in this May flood we have. So they have to excavate that all out, and they do it with bulldozers, and they do it with other equipment. So the diving area is right next to the falls, as you may know. You can see here that maybe you can make out the diving area. It's right next to the falls, and so that has to be dug out deeply. So let's take a look at just how they do that. Coming up right away. So that's what has to happen every spring. We didn't have to do that after this flash flood, they told me. They had a few boulders and logs that they could actually get out manually. And so swimming is reopened today at Treman State Park in the lower park there, and it will be open at Buttermilk Falls. Buttermilk Falls didn't get, as you saw in that video, didn't get hit that hard by the flash flood. So all of the, well, both of these swimming areas have to be excavated, and this is showing Buttermilk Falls several years ago, where here, look, they have a bulldozer in the swimming area. Look at that. And the bulldozer they actually have to build sort of a ramp that goes over the walkway and dam area, and the bulldozer goes in and bulldozes out all of that loose gravel and so forth, all that stuff that's been piled in there by the winter's floods and so forth. So we're now we're going to go take a look at the flash flood, a minute of that or so, at the Ithaca Mall. These pictures come to us from, let's see, from Renee Burun-Stout, Jenny Renee Burun-Stout, and we thank her very much for making this available. This was also on Facebook, and she allowed me to download it. So we're going to go to Ithaca Mall Friday evening in the flash flood. Coming right up here.
Seriously, you have to have evidence.
Sounds pretty bad. I mean, it's not as bad as some places we've seen in the news, but some of the stores got some water in them, had a lot of damage in the stores, and there were a whole bunch of cars that were parked up close to the stores that got flooded, including a family member of ours. We lost a car in there. Total, they get soaked up. You get 3-4 feet of water, standing water in a car, and it just ruins the electronics and the airbags and other stuff like that. So it can ruin your engine. So we lost a car. We have to replace it. So fortunately, insurance is helping out, but they're helping out a lot of people now. Now, one of the problems with a place like this is that, excuse me, the parking lots, roofs, and especially these large parking lots, they do not absorb water. So when you have heavy rains, it does not, any rain for that matter, it does not soak into the ground at all. It has to run off, and so these parking lots become these big aprons that funnel all this water into streams and so forth. We're going to go take a look at some of the water as it gets to Cayuga Lake and what happens. So here goes back to the watershed map of Cayuga Lake, and we go up to the northern end, the upper part there, and zoom right in. And look at the right there, I have the arrow pointing at Yawger Creek and its watershed, which empties into the lake on the left. It's this little area. And Bill Hecht, who is a local photographer who takes a lot of aerial photography, shows the mouth of Yawger Creek where it enters Cayuga Lake. And look at all that mud that comes in after heavy rains. And this is a big problem in our lakes, and Cayuga Lake in particular, because all this siltation carries a lot of pollution with it. It carries chemicals from cars and trucks and off of roofs and off of parking lots, and oil and heavy metals and all sorts of things like that. And it goes into the lake and it sits there, and a lot of it's attached to the mud, settles in the bottom, and is a source of pollution to the lake and the things that live in it. So here's a picture, not from this year, from a few years ago, after heavy rains. This is looking down at Ithaca, and Fall Creek is coming in the middle, and just to the right of that, the larger stream is Cayuga Inlet. You can see how the water is two different colors. And that stuff all is what has built the shelf of sediment that goes out about a mile north of Ithaca into Cayuga Lake. But all these parking lots and roads and so forth. And if you have ditches that are not properly built and they don't have any way of controlling dirt erosion, like a lot of just dig out a ditch, or construction sites that are not properly protected for erosion, and farmers' fields, it happens to be a time of year when there's been plowing and there's no vegetation on it, you can get a lot of this sort of thing. Here's an older picture that Bill Hecht, all these aerials are his, took looking at Taughannock Falls State Park, and there is a plume of sediment coming out in the lake. Pretty hard on fish. If you're a fish, can you imagine trying to breathe in that and with your gills? You've got to be in this mud, and also they can cover up the spawning grounds, particularly of lake trout. One of the reasons we don't have a self-sustaining lake trout population in Cayuga Lake is all the siltation, because they lay their eggs on clean gravel in shallow waters, and that doesn't fare too well in Cayuga Lake. So that's kind of the story of the flash flood stuff. I had a few other pictures to show you. Maybe I'll show you a couple of pictures. I was in Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago. I went to Ricketts Glen State Park, which was about 2 hours south of Ithaca, and zooming in on it there. They're in the middle there. It's sort of hard to see, but you can see there's a gorge. They have a couple of really long gorges with lots of waterfalls. I was particularly interested in these flowers. This is mountain laurel, which was in bloom. I showed some of this last week, but I got some more off another camera that I have, and this stuff is really beautiful. We have virtually none of this around here, but there's a lot of it down in Pennsylvania in these mountains, and it was in bloom, and it was beautiful. It's one of the reasons I went there when I did. It was in late June to see the mountain laurel in bloom. Yeah, a couple of more shots of the mountain laurel. That's it. Okay, so I thank you all for joining me now, and now we're going to say goodbye. So here, I'll put another picture up here of mountain laurel while I get my final goodbye video up. So anyway, turn off this screen and go outdoors and enjoy nature, enjoy the parks.